He stood in the back of a greasy kitchen, hands raw, sleeves soaked. 17 years old. No one saw him. Just another kid washing dishes nobody wanted to touch. He dreamed in secret. In his head, he cooked meals for kings and queens. He pictured white tablecloths, candlelight, the hush of people in awe. But in reality, he scraped leftover scraps from cheap plates. He couldn't afford cooking school, couldn't afford a day off. How does a boy with nothing, no money, no connections, no fancy degree, go from scrubbing grime to serving art on a plate? People said he'd never make it. They laughed at his ambition. One chef even told him, "Kid, you're good for nothing but dishes." But sometimes the world underestimates the hunger of a dreamer, and sometimes betrayal lights a fire that nothing can put out. This is the story of how a dishwasher became a Michelin-star chef, and how losing everything gave him a taste for something more. Stick around. This might just change how you see your own struggles. He was 15 when he ran away from home. Too many nights hungry, too many fights he couldn't win. The city streets were colder than he imagined. And so was the world. He lied about his age to get a job at a local diner. They didn't care as long as he showed up on time. He was small, skinny, but his hands worked fast. He'd scrape plates, scrub pans, mop floors, anything to earn a few bucks. Sometimes he'd sneak leftover bread into his backpack. That bread was his dinner for days. No one asked if he was okay. They just yelled if he dropped a glass. At night, he'd lie awake in a tiny room above the diner. Cracked window, thin blanket. He'd read old cookbooks he found in the trash, pages stained with grease and hope. One night, after his shift, he stood by the back door. He watched the head chef plate a dish so beautiful it looked unreal. He saw how people ate with wide eyes, tasting magic. In that moment, he knew he didn't want to scrape plates forever. He wanted to create something that made people pause, something that made them feel loved, even if just for a bite. But life didn't make it easy. One morning, the owner's son caught him eating leftover steak. He threatened to fire him. He laughed in his face. Dishwashers don't become chefs. Be grateful you even have this. But the boy didn't quit. He worked harder. He memorized recipes he overheard. He watched every move the chefs made. When they left scraps, he tasted them all. Salt, pepper, garlic, thyme. He learned flavors by instinct. Years passed. He turned 17 with burns on his arms and cuts on his hands. But his dream grew stronger than the pain. One night, he wrote down a single line in his notebook. "One day, I'll cook for the world." He finally caught a break. At 19, a new restaurant opened downtown. Big windows, fancy menu. They needed cheap labor. He walked in, sleeves rolled, scars on his arms like badges. He begged for a chance in the kitchen. The head chef said, "Show me you're worth my knives." For months, he chopped onions until his eyes stung, peeled potatoes until his hands bled. He stayed late, cleaned up everyone's mess, said thank you for scraps, and he watched, always watching. Late at night, he'd practice on the same cutting boards they'd tossed aside. He experimented, a dash of lemon here, a hint of chili there. He dreamed up a dish so simple yet bold. Fresh herbs, smoked butter, seared fish. It made his heart race when he tasted it. One night, he showed it to the sous chef, a man he trusted like a brother. The man nodded. "This could put us on the map." His eyes sparkled. They clinked cheap beer bottles in the alley behind the kitchen. He felt seen. Finally, the next week, he came in early. He smelled something familiar from the dining room, walked through the swinging doors, and there it was, his dish on the menu. No mention of him, no credit. The sous chef stood at the pass, plating it like he owned the idea. He couldn't speak. His hands shook so bad he dropped a pan. The head chef looked over. "Clean it up and hurry. We're busy tonight." The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. He wanted to scream, but no one would listen. He tried to stand up for himself. The next day, the sous chef whispered, "Watch your back, kid." By week's end, they fired him. No explanation, no last paycheck, just a kick back to the gutter. He slept in an abandoned bus station for 3 nights. One stale sandwich lasted him 2 days. He wondered if the world was right. Was he just a dishwasher pretending to be more? He thought thought about his mother, long gone, about the people who laughed when he dreamed big. On the fourth night, rain soaked through his only jacket. He closed his eyes. Maybe he'd made a mistake. Maybe some dreams weren't worth the pain. But somewhere deep inside, that old hunger wouldn't die. Even in the darkest moment, he whispered to himself, one day, they'll remember my name, not his. With blistered feet and an empty stomach, he got up. He knocked on doors, begged for any kitchen work. Most slammed the door in his face, but all he needed was one yes. He didn't know it yet, but hitting rock bottom would be the best thing that ever happened to him. He found work at a tiny street market, not a real job, just scraps. The owner let him use a rusty cart, old grill, and half-rotten vegetables, but he didn't care. He had a chance to cook again. No one to steal his recipes this time. No one to take the credit. He woke up before sunrise. He borrowed spices from other stalls. He traded favors for fresh herbs. He grilled fish that smelled so good, people stopped mid-step. He poured every broken dream into every bite. People came back for seconds, then thirds. They didn't know his name. They just knew his food made them feel warm, even standing in the rain. One cold evening, a woman in a fancy coat stopped by. She ordered one plate, then another. She asked, "What's this called?" He didn't have a name for it, so he said, "Hope. It's called Hope." She laughed, but her eyes glowed. Turns out she wasn't just anyone. She was a food critic for a big newspaper. She wrote about him the next day, a hidden gem among the food stalls, flavors bold enough to belong in the city's finest kitchens. Suddenly, the line stretched around the block. His old chef saw the article, sent him a message. "You got lucky." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. A local restaurant owner showed up at his stall, offered him a real kitchen, a small place, run down, but his. He didn't sleep that night, too busy imagining recipes that no one could ever steal again. That stall gave him something no paycheck ever could. It gave him his name back, his pride, his fire. Sometimes your second chance isn't wrapped in gold. Sometimes it's hidden in a dirty market under flickering lights in the rain. But if you're ready, if you're hungry enough, you'll taste it and you'll never be the same. The tiny restaurant barely had 20 seats, cracked tiles, flickering sign. But to him, it was a palace. Every dish that left his hands was a piece of his soul. He greeted every customer, remembered every face, cooked like it was his last chance every night. At first, only a few came. Word spread. People talked about the flavors, but also about him, the boy who went from washing dishes to creating plates that made grown men cry. One night, a group of men in suits showed up. No reservations. They tasted every special on the menu, didn't say much, left without a word. He thought they hated it. His heart sank. A week later, a letter arrived. A single star, a Michelin star. He dropped to his knees right there on the kitchen floor, the same floor he'd mopped as a dishwasher. He laughed. He cried so hard the cooks thought he'd gone mad. He called his old mentor, the one who stole from him. He didn't scream, didn't gloat. He just said, "Thank you. If you hadn't betrayed me, I'd still be washing your dishes." Then he hung up. He knew then. It wasn't just about the star. It was about every scar on his hands. Every night he'd gone hungry. Every time they told him he'd never make it. Now, people come from all over the world to taste his food. But what they really taste is hope. The belief that no dream is too big and no person is too small if they're hungry enough to keep going. His story isn't just about food. It's about betrayal that nearly broke him. It's about a dream so stubborn it refused to die. Life will knock you down. People will steal from you, but your hunger, your real hunger, no one can steal that. When you hit rock bottom, remember, sometimes that's where the ground is firm enough to push you higher. If this story moved you, subscribe for more soul-stirring stories. And don't forget to like this video. Keep your dreams hungry. You never know where they'll take you.